I believe that, of course, stating the obvious, powerful people run the world. I believe that powerful people try their very best to inflict their worldview and their goals and desires on the general populace. I think an easy way to think of it is that if you had a company, let's say you had a small company with 4 to 5 employees, you wouldn't hire any employee that didn't agree with you or didn't listen to you or didn't think like you. If you said, I want you to do this, and they said no, then you'd fire them, right? So if you could extrapolate that out and make it much larger and understand that these people have companies with millions of people or they own countries, they want people to comply. And the reason people have to comply with them is because these people own all the important resource, they own all the important land, they print the money, they own the media, they own the information, and they want to make sure that everybody agrees with them and complies with them. So they have tried very hard to damage the human psyche to the point where we are now completely empty and open for all forms of slave programming. They tried to convince us to ignore our own eyes and our own ears. They convince you to look at somebody and not be sure what gender they are, or to look around you and pretend you're in a pandemic when everything is fine. They convince you that your own brain is the enemy and that you must just only consume what you are told. Because once they do that, once they can convince you to do something as crazy as ignore your own eyes, then they can simply slot in any USB stick of slave programming at random, whatever they want you to currently believe. Whether it's to believe this particular war is a good idea, or staying in your house and destroying your own business is a good idea, or gassing X amount of the population because they're a different religion is a good idea. That's how it works. So the people who are in charge of the world, whatever they want to do, they want to make sure everybody complies and listens to them, which is normal human nature. I'm not going to say that I'm any better than these people. I have 100 people who work for me and I want them all to listen. So that's what happens when you get that big. And yeah, they don't want anybody's morals or religion or point of view standing in the way. They just want you to comply.
And who is they?
Influence is what influence is what the world is about, right? If you send soldiers to a country to die, if you have literally a pitched battle on any country on the planet with tanks and planes and people are dying, that's only to control the ground so you can influence it. Like all of that is for influence. The media is for influence. What they tell people to believe, the mindsets they want you to adopt is so they can influence you. So when somebody like me comes along who has a mass amount of influence and it's going in a direction they're contrary to, they sit and go, wow, this is a big problem from one person. And people have car accidents, people get robbed, people get shot. And that's the unfortunate reality of human nature. When you are a very large problem for very powerful people, they look for quick solutions. And the easiest solution is to kill me. And I think it's going to get there if I'm not extremely careful. So yeah, they dislike me not just because of what I say, because everybody knows what I say is true, but because of the huge amount of influence I have, and also the influence I have over the one demographic they're most fearful of, which are the young military-age males. They're the demographic that they need to keep under control the most, because those are the ones who will lead a revolution. Those are the ones who are naturally rebellious. Those are the ones you need to fight in your armies. Those are the ones you need to be the backbone of the slave force and build the roads for a shit wage. Those are the ones you need to sit in a sexless marriage and raise kids while they're depressed and turn up and pay their taxes anyway. That demographic is the backbone of the economy, of the defense of a nation. They're the number one enemy to the state if they decide to get in a big group together. Like, I don't want to be misogynistic. I've been accused of it enough. But if 100,000 women get in one place and complain, it's inconvenient. If 100,000 men get in one place and complain, it's a revolution. So they're scared of men free thinking, and they're scared of young men free thinking, and my fans are young military-age males, and I teach them to free think. So they look at me and they literally see me as a threat to the world, and that's why I think they're going to try and kill me.
So you said you now have to be careful, so what are you changing about what you're doing to not get killed?
I'm as perspicacious as I can be.
What does that mean?
Perspicacious is the ability to perceive, perceptive.
Right. Yeah.
I'm as perspicacious as I can be, but I'm also very understanding that if they want me, they're going to get me. It's an unfortunate reality. It's very easy to kill people, especially at their level, right? If they want me, they're going to get me. All I'm doing is trying to stay true to myself, stay true to God, because I truly believe this is a battle of good versus evil, and say the things I know need to be said in a way which is respectful enough and important enough so that the powers that be decide that it's okay if I stay alive. But if they decide the opposite, then there's very little I can do about it. And of course, I have a 10-man security team, everyone's armed, I carry a weapon, like, et cetera, et cetera. But if they want you, they're going to get you. That's the game. So it's kind of, people often say to me, well then Andrew, why do you do this? Why do you talk? And I really believe we're living at a pivotal point in history. As AI gets better, as technology gets better, as they get more and more control over the money and the way people think and the way people move, I think that absolute slavery and tyranny is coming to the entire world. I think our children's children will live as slaves. I think the idea of social mobility will be absolutely and utterly destroyed. You're going to be born into a class, and that's where you're going to belong and stay. If you say the wrong thing or think the wrong thing, you're going to be punished for it. And I think this is one of our last chances to fight, and I think it's a battle of good versus evil. It's genuinely God against the demons, and I know that I'm on the side of God, and I'm a strictly religious person, and I couldn't live with myself if I didn't talk. And if God decides that I have to be martyred for that, then that's his decision. So it's unfortunate, but that's what happens when you have mass amounts of influence. Why, and this is a question to you, if you had control of the world and you spent huge resource and energy on media machines to make people think a certain way, and somebody like me came along and made everybody not listen, would you like that person? Would you want that person to continue to talk? What if you tried to go to him and say, listen, shut up, we've warned you now, and he wouldn't shut up? No matter how good the person, I can give you a million examples, right? So I've known nice guys, and they're genuinely a nice guy, and they get a girlfriend who's completely in love with them, and the girl will do anything for them. No matter how nice that man is, they end up just being a bit of a dickhead to her, because she'll just take it. It's just what happens. Power corrupts people. Like, we're not perfect creatures. And I think when you start getting mass amounts of influence and power, it's very normal and natural to get to a point where you just want to be completely and utterly obeyed. And also there's a huge ego trip. And when I say ego, people think, oh, that's a bit of a juvenile way to boil down the world. But I don't think it is. I think that if you're born into a billionaire family and your family's been important since the dawn of human time, that you get a massive ego trip from people complying. And people not complying is a big deal to you, right? You're king. Look at the olden days. If you looked at the king wrong, he'd chop your head off, right? So if you sit and if you come along and give some ridiculous rule, let me make up a fake scenario. Let me make up something totally ridiculous. Let's imagine that everyone was suddenly afraid of the common cold. And let's imagine we told people to wear a mask when they walk in a restaurant, sit down, take it off, eat, put it back on to stand up and go toilet, come back, take it off to eat, to save lives. Let's just do some hypothetical, right? Everybody knows there's no medical backing for that. Everybody knows that's absolutely ridiculous. So why would you do that? Well, you do that to force people to comply so you can sit around and go, that's it. What else is going to make somebody at that level happy besides an ego trip? You think money's going to make them happy? You think you can buy a Ferrari and smile? These people print money. They're above money, right? And they believe, well, I won't say quite rightly, but I understand why they believe it, that they're better than everybody else. They believe that they're literally a different species than everybody else. We're peasants, we're ants. We're nothing to these people. So if they tell you to do something, you better do it. So if you stand up and say, that's dumb, then they go, whoa, 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 who's the big mouth? Oh, this ant's smart. And they'll find a way to check you. And if you're an ant that stands up, and then a whole bunch of other ants stand up with you, well, that's where the problems come, right? That's why they got Socrates. You know why Socrates died?
I'd love to hear.
He was arrested, and he ended up poisoning himself and killing himself because they were going to execute him. And he was arrested for corrupting the youth because he was convincing the youth to think about not joining the military because the wars were pointless. So corrupting the youth is why Socrates died. If you make the youth think, you're an enemy to the establishment. It's always been the same.